the first fountain of youth is your mind, right? Your mind is the wellspring of wisdom. So that's really the fountain of youth, because without a well-functioning mind, it's just going to hinder you in your quest for health and equanimity.
The mind and the spirit,
The
absolutely.
mind and the spirit are really where it starts from. You have to have that fountain of youth attitude first.
Welcome, my friends, to Water is Life, the podcast where we explore the currents of science, spirit, and innovation to uncover water's secrets and water's power to transform our health and our world. Today, I'm joined by a true Renaissance thinker whose path has flowed through art, science, and deep inquiry into water's mystery. Victor Sagalovsky is the co-founder and CEO of Lightwater Scientific, the first company in North America dedicated to producing premium deuterium depleted water. For over 20 years, Victor has immersed himself in the study of water chemistry, biology, and the role of isotopes in human health. He believes that managing deuterium levels in the body holds the key to radically extending our lifespans and unlocking our fullest potential. And I happen to agree with him here. He is also the author of the book Gold, Catalyst of Radiant Health, and has dedicated his life to exploring esoteric sciences, permaculture, molecular biology, and movement arts. He calls himself a citizen scientist and a passionate seeker of what makes us truly thrive. And I have to say, he is really a living example of that thriving. Now, just to keep things interesting, thanks to a few technical curveballs and busy schedules, this conversation had to be recorded over 3 different sessions across 2 months. So please pardon the pauses and the scene changes, but this deep conversation is well worth the time. I know you're going to love it. As always, you can find the miraculous deuterium depleted light water that we're discussing today in the bottled water section at www.waterislife.shop. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Victor Sagalovsky. Welcome, Victor. Thank you so much for being here with us in the Water is Life podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like you are a pillar in the deuteronomics community, and it seems like you've spent a significant part of your life on a quest for the fountain of youth. So could you take the listeners back to that initial spark of curiosity? What was it about deuterium or about water that first captivated your attention and set you on this path and made you think maybe this is where we can truly find the fountain of youth?
I read about it growing up, like all these mythical quests to find the fountain of youth, and they it was always tied into water. Water's the healer. Water's the rejuvenator. Water's the panacea. And it's gonna. And then I was a big fan of hot springs and soaking. And just water is just I never took it for granted. I don't think so. When I found out this thing called deuterium depletion, and deuterium depleted water, I wanted to drink some, and there wasn't any around. So that started that journey and quest. But before that, go to I would go and seek springs, natural water springs, like people they enjoy hiking on the weekends or whenever, right? And I like that too, but I want something at the end. I want a payoff. And for me, that payoff is hiking to a spring or the source of a stream or a river, and then the spring that comes out of. So it has a lot of meaning, right? On many levels, going to the source of something. So I would notice that as I go and map different springs, first in Hawaii, and then wherever I am, I try to go find different springs. I notice that the water has different character, different flavor, different mouthfeel, just different feeling. So that sets off a lot of inquiry, right? Like what's it looks like water, it's supposed to taste like water, but it's all a little different. So this clear fluid is so profound, and knowing water is the most important thing in life. That was the thing I focused on, and finding that our bodies are 98.9% water by molecular weight, and finding out that we produce our own water, this metabolic water, and that's deuterium depleted. So finding out what kind of water we make, what kind of water our mitochondria, our cells, our innermost confined spaces that hold those secrets that are happening at a scale and time that we can't even comprehend, not easily, right? And so this is like a mystic journey. It's all about water. And deuterium depletion was a big technical challenge, and it was a big marketing challenge, and it's just a big awareness challenge to present a new standard of purity to the world and say, hey, look, I'm going to focus on something that's been overlooked, the science that's been overlooked because nobody has had a really good way of testing it out. Because you have to have commercial production of something to test something out other than theory or in the lab or some studies. So that's kind of there's a lot there, but that's just a little highlight.
Beautiful. That's really how I got my start in water as well, was hiking to the natural springs and just noticing, my God, drinking this water is a completely different experience. Drinking fresh, pure water straight from Mother Earth that is liquid life force that's being born fresh in that moment. There's nothing like it. And
You can't replicate it.
you
You
really
can't.
can't. You
And
really
when I stand under a waterfall, right? I think of yeah, I think a lot of things, but one of the things I think about is that you couldn't make this. You couldn't recreate this in Disney World. This is this is real mana. This is real earth energy that's expressing itself, and you're in that stream, right? You're part of it. So how do you become a more crystal part of the stream? So
It's truly sacred.
we're liquid crystal. Water's liquid crystal, and it has different. And liquid crystal has, like all crystals, have different character.
Absolutely. And the
So,
character of deuterium depleted water in particular is very unique in the spectrum of various kinds of water. I think most of the listeners of this podcast are pretty familiar with the water world, but for anyone who might not be aware of what deuterium depleted water is or what deuterium is in general, what is light water? What is deuterium depleted water? What is heavy water? Can you explain a little bit about the different types of hydrogen, protium, and its evil
sure.
twin deuterium,
You just
and
highlighted, yeah,
why why
yeah.
is it that this simple difference that seems so subtle that it could hardly have an effect, because like you said, it's all clear liquid, right? Why is it
Right.
that this simple difference of one extra neutron is so profoundly important to water's ability to conduct life force energy and connect us to that mana, that prana, that chi that you're talking about within our bodies?
Unfortunately, oxygen cannot distinguish between protium and deuterium hydrogen. So protium is what most of the universe is made up. Is the first element on the periodic table. It says hydrogen, but it's actually protium because hydrogen has three isotopes: protium, deuterium, and tritium. So there's not much tritium out there. But deuterium, there's a little bit of this. And when oxygen combines with hydrogen, it forms water, as we know, H2O. And it can't distinguish between the heavy hydrogen and the light hydrogen. So a little bit of this water becomes semi-heavy water. And if you have two deuteriums and an oxygen, then you get pure heavy water. And this has all kinds of biological implications. The main one is it's not compatible with life. It's the main one.
Big difference.
That's the big one.
Water is life, except when it's not.
So, well, there's this thing known as the kinetic isotope effect, and what it what it talks about, or what it explains, is how a molecule disassociates, how one atom or molecule disassociates from another. Like, for example, if you've got a hydrogen that's attached to a carbon, okay, and that disassociation, how quickly that happens. So when you have a deuterium carbon bond versus a protium or light hydrogen carbon bond, you see the disassociation, the time it takes for those to break apart between deuterium and carbon is 9 times slower. So it's always getting in the way of reactions by slowing them down. It's like it's causing you to miss the bus, is what it's doing. Like you make one connection and you can't make the other. That's deuterium because it slows you down. So this kinetic isotope effect. And if you zoom in a little further into the microscope to explain the kinetic isotope effect, you can get into the quantum mechanics of it. which is simple explanation, except simple to explain a phenomenon, very difficult to understand how it's doing what it's doing. But in something's in a quantum state, that means it existing in two places at once, right? It's going over an energy barrier without any energy. It's like teleporting. It's like genie appearing in one place and wiggling your nose, disappearing or appearing somewhere else. So hydrogen does this, and every subatomic particle smaller than hydrogen does it too. And deuterium, being a part of hydrogen, does it as well, but slower, much slower. So it's reactions. Like you need everybody on the team to show up ready to play. If you got one player that shows up drunk, you might lose the match. So this is what's happening. You've got somebody that's unprepared for the mechanisms of life, and we're personifying this thing, but really it's just heavier. Mm-hmm. So heavy water is not something that our body likes, because we prefer, like all nature, the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make the path least resistant. It makes the burden bigger, right? Mm-hmm. It makes the mountain steeper. Mm-hmm. And because you're weighed down by this, and every reaction in your body from the DNA on up. And it's very important when you're talking about special reactions in the body that use what are known as chiral molecules or stereoisomers. And that means that they're like butterfly wings, right? Or like a plane. Those wings are identical. The wings are identical. So these molecules, they have to be identical. And if on one, like mirror copies of one another. And if on one side you've got a protium hydrogen, and the other side you have a deuterium hydrogen, then they're not identical, are they? One's a little heavier. So it doesn't work. The reaction doesn't work. Things break apart. There's errors that come up. And when you have errors in transcription of any cellular process, and especially DNA, then you start to mutate away from the morphogenetic blueprint. Mm-hmm.
So basically it's slowing everything down in the body, every metabolic reaction that takes place, which causes you to age more rapidly, because the body is heavier, it's more dense.
It's putting a stress on your mitochondria. Mm-hmm. because physically, like the actual mechanism of its damage is you have these little nano rotors. Like we have these trillions of these little nanomotors, and they're constantly spinning at up to 9,000 RPM and generating ATP, right? Which is the energy currency of the main energy currency of the cell. And it's physical wear and tear on this motor, because this motor is only made for protium hydrogen to come through. It doesn't fit otherwise. So when you try to shove something twice as big into this motor, like putting diesel into a gasoline engine, you have to, it breaks it down. It causes it to stutter. No energy is produced in that moment. And it's a constant wear and tear, 24/7, 365. That's deuterium. That's why when I discovered this, I said, this can't be overlooked, because it's foundational. I can't do anything. I can't do anything else in health unless I get my water trip right. And I thought I had my water trip right, because I was going to springs and filling up my glass water jugs and getting the best, most vibrant, alive spring water that I could find wherever I was. And come to find out that it wasn't good enough.
Well, it just seems like there's more and more deuterium the further time goes along, ever since the Industrial Revolution. Now there's even more deuterium at the springs, more deuterium in the rivers and the lakes, more deuterium in our food, and there's this rapid increase. And so we almost have to start supplementing with deuterium depleted water, because like you said, it's the most foundational thing. We're made of around 99% water molecules. It truly is the single root cause of just about everything else. Can you share a little bit about how deuteration of the biowater has been linked to so many different diseases. Pretty much every
Mhm.
disease, from mental illness to physical illness, everything that's been measured, they've found a pretty much direct correlation with the amount of deuterium in the body. And how does that tie into your endogenous radiation damage theory of aging? Like, how does deuterium cause or accelerate the aging process on that macromolecular level? And how does it affect our
Well,
gene expression? If you've got deuteration of the biowater inside of the double helix of DNA, how does that affect your gene transcription?
poorly.
Poorly.
I mean, effectively for what's happening, effectively to bring about your demise, but yeah, effective in that. But otherwise, look, you've DNA is made up of hydrogen atoms, like a lot of them. And what if one of those instead was replaced by deuterium? And then more and more. So that distorts the shape of DNA. You need that special shape to replicate properly. So yeah, if you can't, we're just like a Xerox copy of a Xerox copy, right? And if you ever go to the copy store and you take a copy of a copy of a copy, you see that every generation you lose some resolution. So that's what's happening to us. We're losing resolution as we age, and there's errors in how that is being transcribed and how we're reproducing, and there's less of the material that we need, right, to work with, less of the building blocks, such as well, let's see, the right water would be a major one.
Yeah.
Right, because we recycle a good amount of our water, 20-30%, maybe more.
Mhm.
And we do it at if you talk to Laszlo Boros, who's coined the term deuteronomics, he says it's like he did the math on it. There's like 9,000 gallons a day of metabolic water being recycled in your body, going
What?
from
How is
it's
that possible?
it's crazy. It's just everything. It's just that's what I'm saying before. Everything is happening at a speed that we can't even
Mm.
comprehend. At the all the way from the angstrom to the nano to the micro, all the way to the macro level, at every interval of time possible, from
Mhm.
very fast that we can't even perceive to very slow movement. Things
Mhm.
happen. So we're only our DNA is like it's like impervious to a lot of things.
Mhm.
Okay, except when it unwinds to replicate. That's when it's most vulnerable. So we want our DNA to be built on a healthy backbone. We want it to be a healthy backbone, right? And we have to, so we remove the deuterium. And when it was Dr. Olgun who discovered, Turkish scientist, doctor, head of a medical college there, a dean of a university. He started asking the questions because he read the literature. And he says, well, is deuterium that bad for us? Because it doesn't seem to be that much, right? So okay, he did the math. It took him a long time, but he found that there's like 5 to 7 times more deuterium in our bodies by the mole weight, right? Than
Mhm.
than the basic constituents of life, the minerals, the vitamins. The,
Wow.
so he said, "Oh, it is bad, and
Mhm.
cumulatively, it's really bad." And so he did the work for 2 years to figure out how it actually damages us, and that's the ATP synthase nanomotor. It
Mhm.
really interferes with its spinning. So what happens then? So it's a cascade. You lose a motor, you lose a car. You lose a car, you lose an employee at the factory. You don't have any employees, you lose the factory, right? So basically, what I'm getting to is that mitochondria shuts down. So when you're young, you have a lot of mitochondria. A cell may have 50, 60,000 mitochondria, muscle cell. And then what happens when you go through 50 years of life? That same mitochondria that's been chugging along over and over and over, replicating, you have a lot less mitochondria.
Mhm.
Now, the mind may still be willing, but the body's weak because it doesn't have the energy. Because the energy has to be produced out of somewhere. You can't just borrow it. You have to make it. Because our bodies tell us, even with the food we eat, if you look at the metabolic process, everything gets broken down to basic building blocks of life, and then reformed the way we want it, right? We take what nature has, and then we break it down, and then we get the paint and we paint our own canvas with it, right? We want the blank canvas. We want the paint, we want the canvas. We don't want it finished, because the body knows what it's doing and nature knows what it's doing, and we're part of this process. And has deuterium been going up? Yeah, because of the diet, because of the way food is processed, because of the way food is grown, because of the way animals are pastured. Sure, because where the population centers are located, and because it's been gradually increasing on the planet. But we know the answer now. The answer is reduce it by 20% in the body on average, minimum. If you could do more, do it. It becomes a question of economics then, right? Can you afford it? Because everything is fighting against you. Everything else you consume is putting deuterium back in. You're trying to take it out. So you said this is unlike any water. It's unlike any supplement because it's the only reductive one that exists. You don't put anything in your body. It solely exists to take something out. Mm-hmm. So it's water with a purpose, because it's trying to free up your own bodily energy, right? Your own life force. It's freeing it up by not having to work so hard, and potentially actually repair some of the damage that is done by time.
That's a beautiful way of describing it. Can you share what you've witnessed when people do go through that process, when they start depleting their deuterium? Say you get down to 20% less, what are some things that people can expect? And then also, can you share maybe a few of the most compelling stories of transformation or recovery or curative effects that you've seen in people where their life or their health has completely turned around, obviously without making any medical claims, but there is, I think it's in Hungary, right, where deuterium depleted light water is actually approved as a cancer medication. Pure water
for pets, just for pets.
I'm sure people use it off label sometimes, but
it's for your pet. It's for your pet gorilla.
Of course, yeah. So what have you witnessed? What are some transformations that you've personally seen?
I've seen a lot of things that I've seen a lot of really positive things, because most of our business is word of mouth. So it's people recommend to get deuterium depleted because it works. Now, what does it actually feel like, right, to have a deuterium depleted body? Well, I can tell you it's energy on demand, which I couldn't say we're all, but what I observe is people are struggling. That many people are struggling with having energy on demand when they need it. It's the most important thing to me, right? Because when I need it, I can call it up. Because if you don't have it, you don't have it. And then it's metabolic, right? So your metabolism improves. And the things that happen when you have more energy, especially for healing, it's profound. It really is. So I've got a book of testimonials like this. I just don't share any of it. It's everybody's personal journey with whatever they're going through. But the science is pretty clear, because I did this. I started a company with my friends because I wanted to drink DDW, but I never had any DDW, but I wanted it. Well, why did I want it? Because I believed in the science. So, and the science proved me right. After I started drinking DDW, the science proved me right. So I always have like these episodes where I need the energy on demand really badly, and it shows up every time. Now, of course, like being deuterium depleted means that you're just doing preventative maintenance. Like you learn what it is to feel healthy, right? To wake up in the morning refreshed, and to have a full day, energetic day, and then do it all over again, to feel like you're 20 years old again, right? But my story, my latest one is I was in Nicaragua, and traveling for a few days, and I was tired, and I was going to this little corn island. So no cars on this island, cool little spot, and a tropical island. So you got to take a little puddle jumper to get there from Managua. So I get to the Managua airport, and I'm walking into the terminal, and all of a sudden I realized I left my phone in the cab. and all these thoughts come to me like really fast. And one of them is like, there's no possible way you'll ever figure this out if you don't have a phone. You won't get to your destination. You'll barely get home. Your little vacation is now ruined. So I had that thought. And my second thought was, there's no possible way I'm going to not get my phone back. So I just run out of that terminal as quickly as I can. I see that cab way down in the distance. And I started just trucking, backpack and all, right? And I ran there so fast. I started knocking on his windshield because he's driving away at like 15 miles an hour. And I feel like a track star. Yeah. So sure enough, I got my phone back. And I'm looking back at how far I ran in such a short period of time. Seconds, right? 10 seconds, 15 seconds, who knows? It just happened like and I'm thinking, not once did my heart rate go up. It's hot, I'm not sweating, I'm not stressed. I was very confident when I realized the mistake, and I'm very confident still. And so I think when you're healthy, when you have a surplus of energy, that leads to such kind of bodily autonomy that it breeds incredible confidence. So energy is confidence because you have a surplus, and we all want that safety of being able to have the resources when we need them.
Being able to feel 20 years younger is priceless. There's no price tag that you can put on that, and it becomes more and more valuable over time.
I don't know if I could even equate 20 years, because just one little quick other story, because I moved to Hawaii when I was 23 years old, right? So I was on my favorite beach a couple weeks ago, and thinking, oh wow, it's been 30 years when I first set foot on this beach, right? And I'm backpack, trucking, 23 years old, but this is all new surroundings to me. I'm just chug. It's like you're young, but you're hiking, you're tired. 30 years later, I'm on the same beach. I'm running, doing twirls like Fred Astaire. I know exactly where I am. So I think that I had that kind of epiphany that it felt very good to feel physically, to tune back into myself 30 years before and feel physically superior than I was back then.
And not just physically. It seems like deuterium depleted water really helps put you in a flow state more, that it's not just the physical benefits that you get, but really the psychological benefits as well, because your brain is able to fire faster too. All of the neuronal connections like that, those are also metabolic processes that get really slowed down when you have too much deuterium. So being able to tap into that flow state and be in a heightened mood because you have so much more energy makes a huge difference.
I think that's how I found deuterium depletion, deuterium depleted waters, always being in that flow state, or trying to live in that flow state where truth is realized unfiltered. And so that, but you're right, that's when you're deuterium depleted, at least I can attest, you think faster, your reaction time is faster. A great measure of metabolic efficiency is reaction time.
And it seems like the studies are showing that even with conditions like depression and anxiety and these different mood disorders, there's almost always a direct correlation with how much deuterium is in the biowater. And when you start depleting that, it just frees up so much mental energy and so much space in your energetic body.
My partner did that study, the one that showed the depression susceptibility risk. Yeah, what he did was he took the publicly available data. You could find data on every state. You gotta dig for it, but they test deuterium. And he made a statistically significant correlation to depression and risk of depression. And just off the what was available, just public data. And that's absolutely true. If you take two twins, or one pair of twins, and put one in like a lower deuterium water location like Boulder, Colorado, where it's 139 parts per million out the tap, and you put their twin somewhere in Los Angeles, for example, or somewhere in Miami, or somewhere where it's 150 ppm, and you look at that over time, you're going to see that they have different metabolic profiles, and how they age is a little different. I mean, genetics has a big part, but that's why I said twins. You're going to see a real difference because one person is conserving more energy than the other.
Mm-hmm. This is really
So
something that's
energy lost is energy gained, right? Like a penny saved is a penny earned.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that everyone needs. Everyone needs to understand because we're all made of water. It's the most foundational aspect of being human, of being alive, really, is the fact that we are water beings. And yet, this whole field of deuteronomics research is so new that most people have never heard of this. And I think it should be one of the primary things that's taught in school. You're a body of water. We need to know how the water within us operates. So I'm curious how you see the landscape of medicine and public health changing the more that these kinds of studies that you guys are doing are coming to the forefront and the more this comes into public awareness. Or do you think that it's there's too much of a barrier to acceptance?
I think there's less of a barrier than ever before, and certainly there's no barrier in terms of you can't disprove the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You can't disprove what is. It's just a constant of life. Now, I think a Deuteronomics Institute at the NIH would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. I think that I think we're a long ways away from that because you have to rethink your entire food chain ecosystem. What you thought you had food security, but it's really food security for the few that can afford grass-fed or deuterium depleted water, or learn how to detox enough so fasting becomes effective, and all these things that are not cultivated from an early age unless you're in one of those families, right? Mm-hmm. Or have some interest as a fluke of nature, like I did. But generally, it's the doctors are great customers of deuterium depletion or deuterium depleted water. MDs, because they understand, they can get the science really easy, right? They're educated enough to go, wow, this is valid, right? So it's just a matter of selling it to their patients as something that they should do. Now, deuterium depleted water is not the only way that a person can maintain healthy deuterium level, but it's the quickest and easiest way because you can fast, you can go keto for a long time, you could eat animals and fat products that are sourced from areas that have less deuterium. You could actually drink less water and get more water from your fat, and probably be even better hydrated. And so there's a lot of strategies, but it takes an enormous amount of education. That's what we provide. We're excited about this field. We're excited that we get to drink deuterium depleted water. So we're happy to share with others a framework of how to fit it into your life and how to just really understand your metabolic needs and how to stay younger longer. That's really all it's about, is how do I stay younger longer? I like feeling young. I like to do it longer.
It's like, it really is like tapping into the fountain of youth. It's like tapping into those springs of living water on the inside of us when we start really optimizing the metabolic water production and the deuterium depletion and all of the lifestyle factors. I mean, even the way that you breathe can actually affect your deuterium.
You can overbreathe, sure. You can overbreathe, and most people overbreathe, overdrink, and overeat. So you have to relearn a lot of things, right? You have to re-educate yourself, realign.
Learn how to take care of these bodies of water in a different way that really centers the primacy of water as coming first and foremost in all aspects of health.
Yeah, the first fountain of youth is your mind, right? Your mind is the wellspring of wisdom. So that's really the fountain of youth, because without a well-functioning mind, it's just going to hinder you in your quest for health and equanimity.
The mind and the spirit,
The
absolutely.
mind and the spirit are really where it starts from. You have to have that fountain of youth attitude first, and then you have to manifest it externally.
Speaking of the spirit, I've heard you mention before references to the biblical connections to deuterium and water in general. And this aspect is always really fascinating me because the deeper I go into water science, the more it takes me into the realm of spirit. And the deeper I go into the realm of spirit, the more it takes me right back to water and water science. So can you share a few of these biblical connections and insights and what they might symbolize?
Sure. If you look at, I was trying to look historically if anybody had any idea of deuterium depletion, deuterium through the water, anything along that. And I couldn't find it in the Bible except in the very beginning where it said, separation with two waters. So why are you separate? What does that mean? Separating the two waters. So there's something there, and there's really a lot that can be inferred of a mystical nature when you talk about deuterium, because it's like it's a chrysalis that hasn't found its final form yet, right? Because it's in between. It's not really hydrogen. It's not one, it's not two, it's somewhere between one and two. And so it's like, and in every neutron, it's a latent proton electron pair, a protium waiting to pop out, right? So it's everything is just like in this cocoon state, right? But there's like having knowledge, there's like things you want to go toward, and there's things you want to avoid. And that's the beauty of discernment. So we can discern what works for us generally. We're generally okay about passing it down, but I haven't found anything in the historical biblical record on deuterium. Although there's a couple things like you have the patriarchs, and they lived to 900 and some years old, and then gradually start decreasing in their lifespan, if you take it literally. And then there's this big flood that happens, right? This deluge. And after the deluge, the patriarchs, the last of the patriarchs, they don't live longer than 120 years. So their lifespans get shorter. And you see that in historical record with plants and animals, where plants used to be bigger, animals used to be bigger, then they got smaller. Record of humans living longer, record of humans being bigger, like giants. So there's all this stuff that we have in our history, right? Whether it's easy to prove or not, it's there. And but I didn't find anything about separating out deuterium depletion or deuterium depleted water, except in the very beginning of the Bible, where God separated two waters. And also in Egyptian, there's also some reference to separation of two waters. So I wonder what that means. Now, when you start investigating extraterrestrial lore and people that claim to have been in contact with terrestrials, then you get some interesting things. Like they talked about deuterium, like when they were questioned, the ETs in this case, when they were questioned by humans, and this was recorded either in a book or in an audio recording. How come we don't live that long? Because apparently some of these ETs have really long lives, 1,000 more years old in the same body. And they said, well, how come you guys live a long time and we don't? And the answer was, do you guys have more deuterium? And that's one of the things I believe that is what's keeping us from radical life extension. Is solving this problem, but it's not the only problem, because you touched into the endogenous radiation damage theory of aging, and so we have some other things that are happening that cause our mortal coil's demise.
Can you go into that a little bit? Can you share a bit about that theory?
Well, the elevator pitch of that theory is that we're succumbing to radiation damage from within.
From within.
Yeah. If you look at somebody that has advanced radiation damage, like exposed to fallout from a nuclear power plant or some other way, somebody got exposed to radiation damage, and you look at somebody that's really old, they don't look that different. like the effect on the collagen of the skin, the effect on the hair, it's all just a gradual process of being irradiated. And it's happening from within because of radioactive isotopes that we consume. Or, and also, even if we were autotrophs, meaning like breatharians, still would be producing just through natural metabolic processes, we would be hot, we would be producing radiation from within. So I think when you are succumbing to radioactive isotopes from within, succumbing, I mean exposed, right? Then that puts out a beta emission, alpha, beta, gamma particle emission. When that radioactive particle rips through DNA, if it's a single strand break, okay, you can repair that. A double strand break, how are you going to repair that? Right? You're gonna download the blueprint from the morphogenetic field. So
just patch it up with some protein ions.
When information is lost, it's lost. That's a big tragedy, right? When someone dies and they take something, they say, "Oh, he knew so much or she knew so much," and they took it all with them. I wish we learned half of what they knew, right? It's information. Information is informed by lived experience and also by trial and error, getting it right, meaning someone figured out how to get it right eventually, or someone figured something out that would have really benefited all humans, but somehow that got lost. So information is like really important.
It is. Yeah, that's why we need to get this information about deuterium depletion out to as many people as possible. I feel like it's one of the most important issues of our time is water quality, bio-water quality. And unless there's a real understanding, it's not going to sweep the world in the way that it needs to, because there's so many supplements out there. There are so many diets and there are so many fads, but when we start recognizing the primacy of water and the primacy of deuterium, I think the ripple effects of that are going to change everything, not only in healthcare and biology, but even in agriculture, even in ecology, even in the way that we tend to land, even in the way that we tend to the climate. It's one thing to think, okay, how can we reduce the deuterium within our biowater? And then another to think, okay, how can we actually start reducing the deuterium in our environment so that this isn't a downstream problem for generations to come.
Well said. Really well said. I agree.
Do you think, so I have a little bit of a theory about the connection between deuterium and consciousness, and that it's actually densifying the energetic realm of our psyches. It's densifying the whole new sphere of the collective consciousness to have so much deuterium within the collective waters in the world.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think so. I think there's something there. Absolutely. I think there's something there. Anything that doesn't belong. Well, here's the thing is we're superconducting beings. Maybe not the total mass of us, but there's a little bit of superconducting element inside every one of us, right? And deuterium isn't. It's not a. It's the opposite. It's a weigh you down type of element versus if we're all longevity for anything, right? Even a molecule and atom. It's about decay of spin. So you want that spin to not decay, right? Because once it decays, it becomes something else. So superconductivity is the answer, right?
Yeah.
And we have a little, like they say, there's 21 grams. You lose 21 grams when you die. Right? It's just that's the spirit matter. There's a lot of science on this too, actually, in the pineal complex. And this is your superconducting matter. Because anybody that argues this, I challenge them to explain how my brain can work so well. I mean, just the standard human brain, how it can do the things that you need a entire city block of refrigerators for cooling the computers that would do the equivalent, right? So how are we accomplishing this?
So when you say superconducting matter, are you talking about like Ormus elements inside of us?
Ormus is a way to explain that. Yeah. Ormus elements within us. Yeah. High spin state matter. It's basically like levitating, right? If we ever figured out how to levitate, we didn't, that's like, essentially that's quantum jumping, or what's happening at the nanoscale with the quantum tunneling. If that were to manifest in the macro, it would look like us being able to levitate. Mm-hmm. And we're levitating all the way. If you zoom all the way down, it's like, oh, look, it looks like this it's like levitation, right? It's like it's not, it's like levitation, it's like teleportation. Mm-hmm. And so you zoom out and you go, well, that doesn't happen. It's not happening in this reality, but it's happening in.
Friends, what if your drinking water could be a resonant conductor of specific therapeutic frequencies? What if you could just download whatever vitamins, supplements, or health hacks you need directly into your glass of liquid life? Well, with Infopathy, you can imprint your water with the energetic signature of hundreds of different remedies, from flower essences to nootropics, adaptogens, homeopathics, PEMF frequencies, rife frequencies, even entheogens, and so much more, using only light, sound, and electromagnetic fields. This is infoceutical water, water programmed with information, frequency, vibration, and intention, a way of creating your own homeopathic remedies right from home. Using the glowing IC pad or the IC Hummer, you can turn any water into a personalized vibrational elixir. Just choose the frequency from their massive online library, place your glass on the pad, and let your water mature with the wisdom and information of specific frequencies of your choice, customized to your needs. My personal favorites are to enhance my water in the morning with the frequency of oxytocin for an open-hearted, loving day, or to sip on alpha brainwaves and nootropics like lion's mane mushroom for enhanced cognition and clarity while I'm working. Now, the monthly subscription gives you unlimited access to their entire database of vibrational signatures, so you can support immunity, energy, focus, detox, sleep, whatever your body is calling for. And if you're a healthcare provider, Infopathy also offers a practitioner membership, allowing you to create custom complexes of infoceutical frequencies customized for your clients' needs. It's an incredible tool to complement your practice and empower your clients to take a more active role in their own healing, one sip at a time. This is water's memory, made personal, practical, and powerful. Learn more and explore these potent water programming tools in the Energizers collection at waterislife.shop and start crafting your own homeopathic style elixirs with specific custom vibrations. Because your water literally becomes the liquid embodiment of whatever it's exposed to and translates or communicates that information vibrationally directly to your cells. So, what does your water know? All right, so we had a little bit of technical difficulties when we were finishing up the podcast last time. So we're going to pick up where we left off in the conversation. It was just starting to get juicy. You were beginning to tell us about kind of the quantum nature of hydrogen and the superconductivity of protium. And I find this topic particularly fascinating because I'm obsessed with the work of Dan Winter and Nassim Haramein and how they speak about hydrogen as basically being like a black hole with the capacity to conduct an incredible level of energy and information into the 3D world from the quantum field. But of course, deuterium, which has a neutron hanging on to that proton in the center of the hydrogen nucleus, is not able to open black holes to channel that level of energy and consciousness and information. So it literally densifies our consciousness. It's actually lowering our vibrational field significantly if we can't tap into the quantum field of consciousness in that way. So can you speak to that? Can you speak to some of the more, I don't want to say esoteric, but some of the aspects of protium and deuterium that maybe aren't as commonly known, especially in the world of just health and biohacking? How does it actually affect our energy and our consciousness?
That's what you call a drag.
Drag.
Just dragging you down. But I think importantly, first, I think everybody has to have the same definition of quantum, because people throw this word out loosely. I notice more and more, and we need a definition of what quantum means, right? So because it's really fascinating, because it really defies explanation, which makes it so fascinating. And what that is that you are having a particle or particle or a wave, or let's just say something that has mass, disappearing in one spot and appearing in another, right? It's basically teleporting. It's like you can, that's like you've got wrapped up in there, you have time travel, teleportation, superconductivity, right? All these things. And when you zoom in at that to that level, to that proton electron level, to the basic building blocks of matter, you see that that's how it behaves to get over obstacles that would otherwise make life impossible, right? This whole universe wouldn't exist in the way as we know it. So these rules are broken. These rules, at least these rules that we've laid down in classical physics, are broken in quantum physics because we can't explain how it just there's a sitcom in the was it 60s or 70s or Genie, right? And Genie would just wiggle her nose and disappear in one place and reappear in another, right? So this is what's happening with hydrogen. It's able to quantum tunnel. Deuterium, being a form of hydrogen, still quantum tunnels, actually. It's the anything on the periodic table after that does not quantum tunnel. But because of that neutron, it's a lot slower, right? So the kinetics of it, essentially the mechanics of how things have to happen in time. Like if you're in a band and you're just a little bit out of time, everybody will know, right? You'll be told fix that or get out, right? Because everybody's got to play in the same key and everybody's going to be in time, rhythm. So if something's not in time, that doesn't feel right. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right. It's actually a little grating. Something's off. So that's the deuterium. It's off. It's not synced into the right quantum time. Because these things that are happening at this quantum level are really happening at the femtosecond level. We're really talking about the smallest things that we can imagine, right, or that exist, and that we've identified as building blocks of everything else. So if we get down to these building blocks and see how they behave, the very basic building block is hydrogen, right? And then you're looking at the mechanics of it, and this neutron is just it just gets in the way of everything because it wasn't meant, like deuterium was not really meant to exist in the blueprint of things. It's just that it got stuck. It hasn't found its final resting place. Hasn't found its. I don't know if I said this previously because it's been a few weeks since we spoke to finish this podcast, but you're really looking at something that hasn't been completed. Like it's a neutron is there's discussion as to what a neutron really is, just like there's discussion as to what an electron really is. But in a neutron, I'm convinced that looking at all the data and evidence is that it's just in that when you look at the mass of it, it's got a proton and electron in there. So a neutron just hasn't popped yet into a protein, into a proton neutron pair. And in doing so, it's able to participate in the creation of a whole complex universe, right? Where we have over 100 elements or more on the periodic table, 82 that are quite readily recognizable. So this whole play, right? This whole material world is dependent on this neutron, but yet the function of it, the very energetics of it, doesn't want it to participate in production of energy. It's very odd because you look at this symbiotic relationship between the mitochondria and the nucleus of the cell, right? And you have this. It's like you can arguably say it's the longest successful marriage in the history of the universe. 1.45 billion years ago, they decided, hey, let's get married because there's a lot of benefit we could have in this relationship, and it was a relationship of energy and protection, right? Protection from oxygen and other threatening elements, and strategy, how to evolve right? The two organisms combined in synergy, in symbiosis, could spurn the evolution of a simple organism to what we have now, a very complex organism. So, but that started in that relationship, right? It wouldn't have occurred if they stayed separate. So it needed to be this symbiotic relationship with the nuclear DNA and the mitochondrial DNA. And yet they're really alien to one another. They just learn to work well together. And but at the same time, when you look at that, at the complexity, the sheer complexity and the simplicity of the mitochondria and the ATP synthase nanomotors, and just how mitochondria works and produces primary energy and secondary energy, and all the processes of how it works, the mechanical aspects and the chemical aspects of it, and of course the quantum aspects of it, because you can look at any through any lens, right, depending on the magnification, and see something really valuable. And in this, you see that in this entire 1 billion plus year evolution, it has not devised a strategy for minimizing deuterium. It's devised a downstream strategy where you have this Krebs cycle, and you have these really complex exchange cycles where you're exchanging water, but when you're looking at the actual brute force magic of the ATP synthase nanomotor, and how it spins, and how it forces ADP to become ATP. Nowhere in this did it say, hey, I've got, it didn't say like, this is a problem. I am going to solve this problem at the root level. That didn't happen. And that tells me that right there, that's perfect knowledge to start asking some really good questions. Because I just want to ask the right questions, but to ask the right question, you have to be informed of what you're asking the question about. And so, like, why didn't the mitochondria ATP synthase nanomotor make a space to use deuterium for energy production instead of its demise? Okay. And you could say that for a lot of biological processes, but really when I'm looking at the foundation of it, and it tells me that it didn't anticipate this. So it's like, it's really interesting, because I don't have an answer for that, but it allows me to formulate a question as to what's going on here. Yeah. And I think as we get better at asking the right questions, we'll get better answers. And we'll start to get really deeper into, like, we've made some incredible strides as a species on all this external materialistic technology. And we can now apply that to use the best of both worlds, ancestral knowledge and everything that we have modern that we've created in the last 50 years, combine those two and really see if we could start asking the right questions. Because somebody else would say, well, we need to get answers. It's like, well, have you asked the question? It's like, if your question isn't good, then your answer is not going to be very good, as we're all learning with AI, right? You put a bad prompt, you get a bad response. So it's just same thing. And my prompt was like, what is the right water to drink? And that took me down a long rabbit hole. So at some point you have to, if you just operate on faith alone, then you could just stop right there. And so, but if you're really analytical, like me, like a scientific mind, but really just analytical, just like you have to be very like, I don't believe anything until I can prove it, justify it to myself. So, and that's the, now, as far as you mentioned the work of Dan Winter, you mentioned some other people in those spaces. And what's cool about that is people like him and others that are my friend of 30 years, Marco Rodin, all these vortex-based mathematics, and all these people that are trying to decipher the underpinning code of this of this dimension, of this space that we're collectively co-occupying, and everything that is tangential to it and exists within it. And so, and you could see that it's it's constant, right? You can see that wherever you are, everything in nature is going to be informed by some form of derivative of the golden mean, Fibonacci. And there's these constants like pi and phi, and you see it. You see that there are clues everywhere, all around us. Some call this omenology, but it's not even that esoteric. It's just simple clues in math and science and everything that show that the universe is alive. It's a conscious being, and we're part of this consciousness. And water is the medium. It's one of the mediums. That's why I believe that, like, it's not I believe, there's evidence that dolphins were land creatures. And at some point they took a conscious choice to go into the water. Because if you take an X-ray of their fins, they're polydactyl, they have 5 fingers. And the river dolphins have 6. And 6-fingered, like Padmasambhava. And but they made a conscious choice that we're going back into the medium, into the fluid, into the flow. And we're living in this medium of air, this atmosphere. But what's in this atmosphere? There's a lot of water in our atmosphere. And in fact, if there wasn't a little bit of moisture in the atmosphere, we wouldn't like it very much. So we're the aquatic ape. If we weren't, then we would have hair all over our body. That's really that hybrid, that we're land creatures, but we're sea creatures too. So it's the hybrid, the aquatic ape. We do very well. In fact, evolution happened because of being in that environment, being in that marine environment, not up in the mountains, but having that rich brine where the fresh and the salt water come together. That's where life, and the brine is where life started. That's where simple organisms conspired to become more complex and become conscious. So my first question was, how does water play into all this? But I think there's something to it. And I think you asked the same question, put you into your field of work.
Absolutely. And the more we look into water, the more there are just an infinite amount of mysteries. There's no end to the depth of questions that she poses and ways that she shifts our perspective of life and what it means to be human and what it means to be in this world. And you can look at water on any scale and be infinitely fascinated and spend the rest of your life studying water and always have more questions than answers. For every answer that she gives us, 20 more questions pop up in its place. And I think that's the beauty of never being able to solve this mystery of life itself and the very thing that we're made of. But gosh, every little mystery, every little question that we get closer to answering is just infinitely more fascinating than the last. I mean, this whole field of deuteronomics is so new and so richly rewarding in so many different fields. The more we come to know about it, the more it seems to solve so many things. And yet we're really just at the precipice of beginning to discover it.
There's a Dr. Berdyshev is long passed on, but yeah, he was one of the original researchers in the 50s that cracked open this deuterium depleted water thing in Siberia. And later in life, he wrote a book, Ecology of Water. And in that book, he talks about, well, a lot of things, but I remember one particular thing. You were talking about deuteronomics being fascinating. Well, he makes a pretty valid argument, pretty intelligent, data-supported argument, where the migration of birds is really a deuterium depletion strategy.
Really?
Well, think about it. You have these birds, let's say they hang out in Canada, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There, the water has less deuterium than in the Caribbean or wherever they fly to, and yet they migrate down, traveling thousands of miles, to enjoy the winter in a paradise, essentially, compared to where they're from, right?
Mhm.
But yet they go back. Why do they go back? Why do they fly back? Well, they fly back to birth their young, to lay their eggs. Now, why not just lay your eggs? You just got to, it's like, if you're living in Minnesota and you move to Hawaii, are you going to go back to Minnesota? So there's got to be a reason. And that reason is because they have just genetically, and I mean, it's like a super conscious type of thing. There's less deuterium in the water. So the survival of their offspring has a greater chance in places where there's less deuterium because they're going to be more vital. They're going to grow to maturity faster. If you're in the wild, if you grow to maturity faster, that means that ensures that basically that's better for your survival, right? So same thing with whales. Okay, whales. Well, the longest lived whale is I think is the blue whale, and it hangs out near Antarctica. So what water is it? What fresh water is it consuming? It's consuming that runoff, and that runoff was deuterium depleted. Or look at the humpback whale. The humpback whale migrates from Alaska to Hawaii, and in doing so, in that 3 to 6 months that it's in Hawaii, and it gives birth to their young, and the humpback fasts the whole time they're there. So fasting is a deuterium depletion strategy. And then when it goes back up to Alaska, it hangs out in that brine water where the fresh water meets the ocean, and that water is what? It's deuterium depleted. So it hangs out and eats deuterium depleted environment. Then it goes on vacation to a deuterium rich environment where they fast and are able to conserve their deuterium depletion by fasting because their metabolic water is deuterium depleted. So there's this strategy in nature for deuteronomics. And it's not like they sit around and discuss this. This is all happening at, like I said, like I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it's like a super conscious, subconscious level. It's like they all do the DNA does the math internally and says we need to go here, and so their internal clock guides them here because the most important thing for us is our survival, safety, and then survival of our species. Mm-hmm. Nature picks the best strategy for your survival, and that strategy is to have your young in a place that's deuterium depleted.
So it really is one of the best parenting strategies that there is. I've seen, and maybe you can clarify the numbers on this because I don't recall, but it was something like once you reach a certain age, even if you drink nothing but deuterium depleted water for the rest of your life, you can only have a certain cap on the effects of longevity. But if you grow up drinking deuterium depleted water, like the children who grow up in the Hunza region or these other places where they just drink deuterium depleted water from the start, they get something, what was it, like a 30% increase in lifespan or something to that effect?
Well, look, how you start out in life is really important, right? I mean, the fact that we're vaccinated, malnourished, all these things from day one really limit our development. So really, if you could just let the genetic blueprint develop unencumbered, because when Weston Price went to study Aboriginal tribes and Inuit tribes and basically traditional cultures, he found that they didn't need to get their wisdom teeth removed because they all came in, right? So because it's all because of Western diet, and or just call it the wrong diet, because there's good Western diets too, but there's things that affect our genetics multi-generationally. So that is really important discussion. It's just not much we can do about what we're given genetically, but you can improve your genetics over time. But you could also improve your epigenetics to deuterium depletion. I think I'm doing it myself because I just turned 53 years old, and I'm looking at my mitochondria through me screen, which is an incredible company that I've started to work with. I'm looking at just my basic blood markers. I'm looking at like RBC, just red blood count. I'm looking at resting heart rate. I'm looking at HRV, and I'm like, physically, minus the gray hair, instead of 53, I'm 35, right? The inverse of that. So I don't take any supplements right now. I stopped most of them because I just want to see, hey, I'll just eat a good diet like I always have. Okay. I've always been adept at nutrition or food as medicine. So I know that really well. I teach that. And then I'll just do deuterium depletion. So I got myself down to sub 90 ppm saliva wise. And that does translate to, I mean, if you just look at the math of it, when you lower your deuterium, your proton motive force increases. Okay. But if you look at my mitochondrial analysis with a me screen, it shows that I'm running my mitochondria red line because that's what I do. I burn it at both ends. It's what I do because I can. But my ROS, my reactive oxygen species, what would normally be the negative side effect of that is almost doesn't exist. Like I have no oxidative stress. So I'm burning it at both ends at red line with almost non-existent oxidative stress. Like people in their 20s have more oxidative stress than I do. So,
you're a walking billboard.
I'm a walking billboard for deuterium depletion. And it's just as easy as drinking water. The hard part is paying for it if you can't afford it, and just doing it, because there's all kinds of other things that. So so I keep creating products that work with light water, so you can have still, if you're really do this. I mean, if you want to do biohacking, this is the crown on your Christmas tree of biohacking, right? It's nobody. I don't think anybody in history has been deuterium depleted below. Well, if you live in Antarctica, then you'll be 89 parts per million. And I don't think there's been full-time residents or even part-time residents in Antarctica until the 20th century. So there's never been anybody that's been 100 ppm or less, or even 100. Some people maybe 120 something. But there have not been people that are depleted as I am now, and other people that are drinking light water or any other BBW are now doing. So that's real biohacking. And what is it? And what is it showing you? Well, it's showing you that your biological markers are staying young. And when it's an assessment of how energy is used, you have a lot of it, you have it on demand, and you have a very efficient recycling and upcycling of that energy without much else needed, like supplements, this, that, this, there. It's forget it, right? You just get yourself in homeostasis, get yourself in balance, keep the deuterium level low, and then the only thing that's left is a positive, joyful outlook. But feeling light will give you that. Right? You'll naturally as the brain and the mind informs the body, so vice versa. A good body feeling good will make the mind feel very good too, give you confidence. So, and my testosterone is 1040. Last I checked 2 months ago. So that is that's the extreme healthy limit for any age of male. So I'm really not taking anything. I do intermittent fasting. I eat well. I know food is medicine. So I know because there's things that are essential, right? Because they have that in the name: essential fatty acid, essential protein. There's things, vitamin C, things like so. Get your essentials, because the body, in a high functioning state, makes everything else. We don't need like my friend always used to say. Somebody said, "Oh, I'm putting collagen on my face because it's going to increase my collagen." They say, "Excuse me, a rose is not made from spare parts. You're not going to put collagen on your face and think your body's going to make collagen. It doesn't work that way."
Friends, what if everything we were ever taught about water was incomplete at best, if not downright wrong? What if water is actually a living, intelligent bridge between worlds, the axis of the hologram of reality, the arbiter of as above, so below, and the point of communion between the human and the heavenly? This is the truth that we explore in the Spirit of Water course, my magnum opus within the Water is Life Academy. It's the culmination of over 15 years of research and devotion distilled into over 18 hours of teachings. Equal parts sacred science and spiritual revelation. This course is for the mystics, the healers, the seekers, and the scientists. For anyone who has ever felt water whispering to them and wanted to understand what she's truly saying. Throughout 8 in-depth modules, we build a new water paradigm, a new philosophy of life that stars the liquid source of life that we're made of. In Module 1, you'll shift from seeing water as what to recognizing her as who, a living entity you can commune with. We dive into hydromancy, reverence, and reciprocal communicative relationship. In Module 2, discover how your inner waters mirror the waters of the earth, how hydration is consciousness, and how cerebral spinal fluid connects you to the stars. In Module 3, we expand our gaze to the cosmic waters, the superfluid ether, the waters above, and how the stars imprint themselves into your body water. In Module 4, we explore the triune nature of water, her body, her mind, and her spirit, and why she's the bridge between the physical and the divine. In Module 5, we trace how ancient traditions, scriptures, and creation stories saw water as the source. You'll receive sacred tools and rituals from indigenous peoples around the world. In Module 6, we dive into water magic and manifestation, co-creating reality with the medium of water using intention and vibration. And I'll share with you personal stories of how I partnered with water's reality creation powers to materialize my dream life from vision to form. In Module 7, we unveil a mysterious ancient water religion and how its teachings may actually already be directly shaping your spiritual path even now. Module 8 is the great crescendo, a 4.5-hour transmission into the esoteric physiology of enlightenment through your own body of water. It's where science, scripture, and spirit merge as we trace the journey of chrism oil in your cerebral spinal fluid and learn how to fully optimize it so you can be reborn of water and the spirit. This course will change the way you relate to water, to your body, to the earth, to the cosmos, to your prayer and meditation practices, and to your entire paradigm of reality. Once you see through the eyes of water, you can never go back. You'll never look at a glass of water or the night sky in the same way ever again. So join me for this deep initiation at waterislife.academy. Water is the source of life, my friends. So in this life, as a body of water, let water's wisdom guide you back to your source. All right, we are back here with Victor again to finish up. Third time's the charm. We've been had a few technical difficulties off and on, but I'm really actually glad that it worked out in the end, that we're finishing this up after I had a chance to go back to the US for a few weeks and get my hands on some light water and taste it and just immerse in it for a couple of weeks. And it felt amazing. And I was really surprised because it's ultra pure water that it has such a smooth and creamy texture. It has a really nice, I don't want to say flavor profile because it tastes very clean, but it's just that mouth feel that's very kind of creamy. It's delicious.
And we were surprised too, because normally what we have is ultra distilled water. It's ultra pure. So there's no ions in it of anything, right? It's 2 mega ohms of resistance. So normally when you have a water like that, DI water or triple distilled water, it tastes very flat. And ours came out tasting like, wow, this is refreshing. I think that's because the deuterium component is highly reduced. I mean, there's no other explanation for it.
Yeah.
But water has a way of structuring itself, right? So in this sense, it's a really good tasting water for ultra pure water. So absolutely no minerals in it.
Yeah, it's really delicious. And every water is its own unique entity in a way. Every water has its own energy, its own flavor profile, its own mineral profile, its own constituent of microorganisms and electromagnetic charge, and all of these factors that go into making different waters very unique beings. And they all communicate very different information and micronutrients and vibrational charge to our cells and our bodies. And I think that's one of the things that's made water so challenging to study, because typically science just wants to reduce everything to its component parts, like water is just H2O. And obviously, having devoted our lives to water, we know that's not true. So for the listeners, after the decades that you've been studying water, Can you give us your best stab at an absolutely unanswerable question? No one can know this for sure because water is the ultimate mystery, but what do you think water is? What is her role? What is her dharma? What is this mystery that we get to drink and be made out of?
So stop moving, right? So we could study you. So we could look at you. Please stop moving so we could observe you.
Right.
Well, to me, water is the first thing that water was to me. So it's the womb space. And it's the first thing that we experience floating in there. So what is this weightlessness? What is the experience of water when you're twice in it? Because you're once in it because you're floating in your inner ocean, and twice in it when you're floating in water, that experience. And to think that there's a sentient being or sentient beings like the dolphins that made a choice to leave the land because they're polydactyl. They have 5 fingers under those fins. So at some point they made the choice to leave the land and go back into the water because the water it's that we experience it as a womb space for 9 months, and then after that, for me at least, I don't know anybody else, but every time I'm in water, immersed underwater in water, I feel that. And there's a feeling that you also get in water when you sail, and that is that you either accept it as the mother that is nurturing you, and in which your only foundation is no foundation. So you quickly adjust to be able to meet the horizon and know where level is, but you're never on stable footing. You're always moving. So to some people that's unnerving, but to others like myself, it's very comforting because you're always in the movement. You're always in that rhythm, always in that pulse of life. And that's what water is. It's a constant movement. That's what life is. It's constant activity, movement. And what kind of movement is it, right? Is it graceful movement or is it some other movement? So
Rhythmic, cyclical movements, spiral movements, sometimes staccato, chaotic movements in a storm, and sometimes gentle dripping, but she's always moving. The only time she ever stops moving is when she comes into human care, and then we just put her in stagnant holding tanks or put dams on rivers and kill all the life nearby. But I love that
and you know
definition that she's
if you look at the movement of water, the actual quantum movement of water, it has its own pulse. You know, it has its signature, and there's ways you can see it in things when you start introducing sound frequency to water and you start looking at ways sound affects water, and how light moves through water and how water can slow down light, right? So water is this medium, like an atmosphere, essentially. And it's a medium because it holds so much information and charge and mineral. But even of and by itself, it has this rhythmic dynamic that it's a signature onto itself. And when you study that, you see it's like an engine. Right? It's like a universal harmonic engine, and it just allows everything. Everybody's always worried about energy, right? Money is energy, your own physical energy. So the energy of stars, everybody's concerned with like the output of things and energy that you need to go faster or do more. And water's a constant. It's been here longer than we have. It's a constant energy, and it's a constant energy with its own source. So it's self-contained, and in that it moves in and out and weaves in and out of things and assists in the creation of life. And so that's an intimate relationship.
Yeah, and through its movement, it has this ability to bring in raw energy from the quantum fields to be the translator for this entire etheric ocean of non-visible, non-physical forces that are omnipresent beyond space, time, and dimension. And water in that that pulse that she has. I mean, you can see it in a vortex. The vortex is breathing. It's getting bigger and smaller. It has these layers to it. And then
Mhm.
Victor Theodore Schwing talked about this at length too in his book, The Sensitive Chaos, how you can just see that there's a pulsing in everything. There's this back and forth. There's this ebb and flow to water that very much makes her an actual living being. We would see the same thing in any organism, and maybe we see that in living organisms because they're made of water. And maybe it's that rhythm, that movement itself that allows things to be born and to grow and to sustain themselves in this 3D world.
It's a very large and non-local consciousness with a signature, and it's beautiful because it reflects to when we see beauty, we recognize it instantly, especially in nature, because we're drawn to it because it's the perfect order, it's a perfect proportion, and we see that in water, and water lends that to us. You know? So
absolutely. Well, thank you for creating some of the most beautiful water in the world and bringing this blessing to everyone who's listening and has stuck with us through all 3 sessions. Thank you. And you can find light water at waterislife.shop. We've got it in glass bottles and in plastic bottles. They're in the directory for you. You'll find all the links and descriptions there. And of course, you'll find them under this podcast in the description as well. And Victor, if folks want to tune in with you and stay in the loop of what you're up to, where can they find you?
well, if you made it past the bad lighting in the beginning part of it,
I kind of love that lighting. It was very futuristic.
that we did before. Drink Light Water on Instagram. You know, it's a company website. Find stuff, everything about what we're doing there, and on our website, drinklightwater.com. So as far as me, I know I'm around. You get a hold of me.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And it's been a joy chatting with you 3 times. I look forward to the 4th time, whenever that may be. And to everyone who's been listening today, be well, stay hydrated, and be water, my friend. Friends, if you're loving what you're learning on the podcast and you want to dive deeper, check out the courses, webinars, workbooks, and private coaching available at waterislife.academy. These are on-demand, lifetime access programs where we dive into brand new concepts not taught here on the podcast. And if you're ready to optimize your water to be a healthy wellspring of hydration, discover the water alchemy tools that are available at waterislife.shop. And let's connect on Instagram at JenIsabelFriend. I look forward to seeing you there. Stay hydrated and be well.